Day 2 of the World Chess Championship. Gukesh crumbled in game 1 and now the pressure is on his shoulders. If Ding wins today with the white pieces, it will be a 2-0 lead, and after that I think it's all downhill. It will be almost impossible to strike back with that lead. So right now Gukesh has pressure. He has to strike with the black pieces or at least hold a draw in this game. Can he do that? Let's find out. Ding started with pawn to e4. Now that's very important because Gukesh also chose 1e4 with the white pieces, and that means both players are very well prepared and ready to take the fight to their opponents. e5, knight f3, knight c6, and we have a typical Italian on the board. And here after d3, knight f6, knight to c3. That's very interesting because usually most top players would castle here, play the pawn to c3, the knight will come to d2, rook e1, knight f1, knight g3, and the idea is to stick to mainline theory because that's been established as the main way for white to play. But somehow here, knight c3 could be a choice because he's thinking, man, I don't need to win this game. If I draw all the remaining games, I'm already the champion. So maybe this was his opening preparation for the situation, when he is in the lead. So we'll see. a6, a4, d6, the bishop comes to g4 and knight will come to d4 as well. Castle, simply h6, preventing bishop g5, bishop e3, and usually here you would put the bishop on b6, but black has played a6. So yeah, you don't want to take on e3 and open the f file. That could be dangerous. So he just keeps the bishop on c5 and he simply plays bishop e6. So we're going to have a very, very interesting pawn structure here. First of all, a5. And now bishop c4, pawn c4. And now bishop c5, pawn c5. So you see how these four pawns are could be very weak or very, very strong. So these are double pawns. So it's like a pawn, knight, pawn, pawn, knight, pawn. So it's a nice formation of pieces on the line. If you put the rook on c1 and c8, it will be epic. But somehow now the d4 and d5 squares become very important. So the side which can really dominate the squares, for example, knight d4 or knight d5, and that side will be better now. You don't want to take if knight d5 happens, and white doesn't want to take if knight d4 happens. So this formation, these two squares will decide the game. Now pawn to b3, and Gukesh does not have the same luxury because of this pawn on a5. Now this pawn in turn could be weak. For example, the rook has to stay on a1 to defend this pawn. So it's under constant pressure, but as of now, Gukesh cannot play b6 because that will fix white's pawn structure a little bit. So now queen d1, rook d1, there was no good square for the queen anyways, and now we've reached an endgame, and then here plays rook c1, which is very interesting because it kind of is prophylaxis against knight d4. The pawn is now defended with the rook. He will bring the king to the center. The knight can be routed. Maybe f3 comes up on the board, and he's trying to reduce the power of knight to d4. And anyways, there is no entry point. So the rook cannot enter anywhere. All the squares are covered. So he realizes that and he thinks, okay, let me just kind of make his knight d4 weaker and kind of maintain my knight d5. So now knight d4 anyways, and of course, if you, for example, take on e5, there'll be rook e8, knight d3. You can simply take on e4 now and black is absolutely fine. So you cannot take as of now. So knight comes to e1 and you do not want to take on d4. That will be amazing for black. He fixes his pawn structure and he's already slightly better. So knight e1 and now rook d6 and now king f1, g6 and now rook d1. So basically the entire purpose is he finally is ready to challenge black on the d file, and Gukesh of course doubles up rooks, and you never know, you might have some random discover attack. Not here of course, especially when there's some check, the king could be on an awkward square. So these double rooks definitely putting some pressure. And now f3, so defend the pawn as we discussed, and now king g7. So both sides trying to improve the game a little bit. That is the end goal. Nobody wants to make committal moves and make a huge mistake here. It's the world championship. King f2 slight improvement, h5 slight improvement, knight e2, and now finally Ding challenges a strong knight on d4. And these two knights are not equal. We say everybody is equal, but these two knights definitely are not. This is the stronger piece. Challenges center, the challenge center white has, puts pressure on every single, so many pawns, yeah. So you do not want to trade these as black. If knight e2, king e2, I feel, white is tiny bit better already. He can now slowly reroute the knight to d5 and he'll be slightly better. So do not trade these knights. Gukesh plays knight to c6, very logical move. And now knight to c3, so very interesting. He allows rook d2 check. But the problem is, After takes and simply king e3, there is no more squares for the rook. He has to come back again, and now knight d5, and white is now better. Gukesh, being pragmatic as he is, especially after the first loss, plays the knight back, and knight c3. Ding basically is offering a draw. Knight d4, and they both repeat moves a couple of times, and the game ends in a draw. So that was kind of anticlimactic at the end, but to be honest, a fair result for Gukesh, who suffered a heartbreak in game 1 yesterday. So going into round 3 tomorrow, it's going to be white pieces for Gukesh, who will love to strike tomorrow so that he goes into the first rest day with an equal square, with an equal score. And at the end, remember, if Ding strikes one more time, the world champion could essentially just be over. So all pressure on Gukesh, as he will again have the white pieces tomorrow. Will he make the same mistake again? Let's find out. See you in the next video.